In this video, I'm drawing a map of a castle. Okay, so I'm here in Photoshop drawing Malamar Castle. In the last video, I talked all about the Sludge Behemoth, the big final boss of my RPG zine called Dragontown. So this Sludge Behemoth is patrolling the ruined castle where the dragon of Dragontown lives. It's trying to keep people out of the castle, but it's also like broken down a bunch of the walls and is kind of making a mess of the place. So a big part of exploring this final area of the adventure is trying to avoid this giant sludge behemoth as it is patrolling through the castle. Players will also be looking for clues and trying to figure out how to get into the tower, the big circle on the map. This is where the dragon keeps its treasure and is where the players have been pointed to earlier on in the adventure. So the Malamar Castle, you know, when I'm making a map, one thing I'm kind of a stickler about is making sure the map actually makes sense. So this castle is actually 2 levels, but the top level is like all rotten out and it's just kind of like one big room now. I don't know if there's even going to be space in the zine for a second level map, but that's not really important. That's where everybody that lived in the castle stayed. All the bedrooms and stuff were upstairs, and then downstairs there's the great hall, the kitchen, pantry, there's a little chapel, a library, an office, and a sitting room, and then the towers, they have their own purpose. You know, this is a pretty simply laid out castle, but hopefully it all makes sense, and as players explore it, the layout of the castle doesn't betray this as a real place. Like, it still feels real even as the players are sort of figuring out how the castle works and what kind of rooms and stuff are inside the castle. All that stuff. So each room of the castle has something defined, whether it's a little bit of history about what this place was like before the dragon came here, some little clues to figure out what this sludge behemoth is all about, or just a fun little surprise. You know, there's a couple magic items hidden throughout the castle. So I'm doing this castle drawing in Photoshop. If you're wanting to draw your own castle map, you don't need any fancy Photoshop computer drawing stuff. You can totally do this by hand, just using pencil and pens and some grid paper. I really encourage you to go check out some of the older videos about making dungeon maps and world maps and all that stuff. But really for this map, I'm just following a grid. I think at this scale, each square is going to be 10 feet instead of 5 feet like I would normally do, just because there's a lot of information that's going to have to shrink way down, and I want this castle to be at least sort of big. It's not really that big of a castle, but I'm gonna have to fit a lot of information into a relatively small space because this map is gonna be printed over 2 pages in the zine, I think. And really the trick of this map drawing, I'm trying to figure out like how simple the map should be. You know, I'm not numbering the map yet, but really the description is gonna tell you everything you need to know about what's in these rooms. The map just needs to be a layout of the castle so a dungeon master can kind of figure out where things are and how to relay that information to the players. So what I'm trying to say is it's tricky to figure out how representational the map should be. Like, should I show every little detail of what is inside each room, or should it just be little boxes and let the description do all the work? I don't really know, and this drawing might have to change a little bit before it's printed in the final book. Speaking of the final book, I want to give an update on the progress of Flick Silverpin's Guide to Dragontown. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, again, there's more videos. I'll have a link to the playlist down in the description. This is a low-level adventure that I'm writing and publishing as a zine. It was successfully funded on Kickstarter, and now I'm just working like crazy to get it done and sent out to all the backers. It's also up for pre-order on my website, link in the description. But yeah, I feel like I'm finally making some really good progress because the writing of Dragontown is finished. So this zine has gone from a loose outline to a more fleshed out outline to an even more fleshed out outline to a half-written thing, and now it is finally done. All of the monster stats are complete. There's magic items with what they actually do. There's tons of random tables. There's descriptions and what the NPCs want listed out for every NPC. There's so many NPCs in this thing. And now they actually all have names. Honestly, naming everything is probably what took me the longest. So as I mentioned, this is Malamar Castle. It used to be called Calamar Castle, but I got some comments about calamari, and this isn't a squid castle, this is an apple castle, so now it's called Malamar Castle. And in fact, the whole valley and the crypt and this whole area is called the Malamar Valley. The dragon of Dragontown finally has a name. He's called Xanthoriel, the gold dragon. It took me a while to figure out how to make a dragon name sound cool, but I think Xanthoriel sounds cool. It's not an evil dragon, more like a regal gold dragon that also is kind of greedy. So it has that, and it means gold. That actually the two words that make up that name mean gold. And if you've been following along with this series of Dragontown, I've decided that Carl the Cleric is gonna stay Carl the Cleric. His name is Carl Boldbeacon, Cleric of Valorum. So he's staying. He's still awesome. What else is going on with Dragontown? I've been playtesting it, so I've been running it with a group of 3 friends. We're about 1/3 of the way through the adventure. It's going pretty good so far. I've learned a ton. Some really big things, like I needed to include a description of the town, like what it looks like, how many people live there, stuff like that I totally just didn't even think about because it's so solidified in my head that I totally just spaced on there needing to be a description of the town. But then also just super specific detail stuff, like how the slime encounter works with these slimes that don't really attack the players unless the players attack them, and how they split and reform, and just detailed stuff like that needed to be really described more clearly and specifically. So there's still a ton left to do on the book. Now I'm going back and doing more editing. I'm working with my friend Scott to make sure everything looks good, makes sense, everything that needs to be there and is clear and all that stuff. I'm trying not to go back and like noodle with individual words. That for some reason I've gotten into like just reading through the sections and making sure every word is perfect. I don't think I need to go that far, but that's kind of what maybe has been taking me so long. It's why naming these characters takes so long. I don't know. So yeah, wrapping up edits, and now it's time to start laying out the book. This thing has blown up as I've been writing it. It's now a 37-page Word document, and that's with me trying to be as concise as possible. So I don't know how that's going to cram down into a zine that has a ton of illustrations and maps in it. We'll just have to see. It's going to be big, and there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. Even this castle has grown into a much bigger encounter and experience than I had originally thought. So yeah, there's lots more to come on Dragontown. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please subscribe. I have a ton of work left to do on the zine, and I'm gonna bring you along with me on the adventure. Let me know what you think of Malamar Castle down in the comments. If you have any questions about my drawing process with this castle map, leave them down in the comments. I'll see them, I'll answer them. I super appreciate any feedback you've got about the castle. Is there something I missed? Probably. Anyway, if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I super appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!